The problem we face is in challenging the flood of propaganda and false narratives and denial that poison the political and social discourse regarding race relations in America. LA progressive publishers Sharon Kyle and Dick Price have made this struggle their common mission.
I am my brother's keeper. A pledge that must go deeper. I am my brother's keeper. No, there is no other. This is the promise and the prayer. For every man, woman, and child, we should care. For our brothers and our sisters, we are here.
We've devoted our lives to disseminating information about social justice.
Because of who we are and what our interests are, we've focused on the centrality of race to try at best we can to bring black voices and brown voices more into the mainstream because they're typically overlooked.
Well, the thing that's interesting about being married, being in this interracial, we don't even think of ourselves as being an interracial couple. The thing about race is how proximity, being close in community, living, working, playing together is really our only salvation if we're to deal with the racial chasms that exist in the United States. And I would say that in my personal experience, being married to Dick, I did have another husband. I mentioned that I had children when I first came to.
What?
I actually was married to someone else before, and I actually.
Oh, I thought those kids came
those
in the
kids,
mail.
No. So my first husband was and is a black man, and being married to Dick and being a part of his family really opened my eyes to a different kind of way of being. I would tell Dick, and these were just my own personal observations. It was nothing I read about. This was all new to me. He and I would be someplace. Most of the time we were in spaces that were predominantly white, our church, our community. And whenever we'd be, let's say, in a social function and the conversation touches on race, everyone gets quiet and they all look at me. And and this happens so often. And I'd say, Dick, clearly between the two of us, I'm the only one that belongs to a race. So, and I noticed that, when I'd have my family gatherings with my biological family, my mom, my dad, my brothers, cousins, and Dick would come. When you're around black people, we are talking about race. This is all the time because we're impacted. We're reminded. It's a constant drip, 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 drip. But then I go around Dick's family, and that's like, nobody here belongs to a race except you, Sharon, but nobody else. And so it was sort of an eye-opening experience, the way that I began to see that everybody's racialized except for white people. And so whenever we would talk about race in our publication, it seemed to me that for white people, they would look at it, oh, well, this doesn't apply to me because I clearly don't belong to a race. And I thought, Dick, how can we create, so what I wanted to do, and we've done it, and I think we've kind of been successful, is I've intentionally mixed in articles about domestic policy, foreign policy, race issues in the United States and abroad, but mix it all together so that someone who might come to the LA Progressive because they really are interested in the environment, well, they're going to be reading an article about the environment, also about what happens in the inner cities and how our inner city folk are exposed to all kinds of toxins and so on, just because they're in the inner city, and how being black or being Latinx increases your exposure to toxins in a way that would never happen in these wonderful suburbs of the San Fernando Valley.
A lot of places in the rest of the country think California is all this wonderful diversity, majority, minority state. But the fact is that we're still very segregated, and until we address that and do something about that, what's happening in the streets will continue.
And that's why I talk about the centrality of race. If progressives are really serious about wanting to create the kind of civilization, society, community that we want, you gotta be intentional about desegregation.
Right.
That's the only way it's gonna work, in my opinion.
When it comes